The smart home camera notification pinged at 11:47 p.m. while I was reviewing blueprints for the Morrison project. Motion detected in master bedroom. Funny thing about technology, it never lies, even when you desperately want it to. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I'm David Harper, 45 years old, licensed architect, and apparently the kind of husband who gets cuckolded in his own bed while working late at the office. The irony wasn't lost on me that I'd designed our entire smart home security system myself. Every angle, every sensor, every perfectly positioned camera that was now showing me my wife Olivia riding her boss Nathan like he was the last horse out of a burning stable. Well, I muttered to my empty office. That explains the sudden interest in working late. Olivia had been my wife for 12 years, marketing executive, ambitious as a wolverine, and apparently flexible enough to accommodate Nathan's considerable ego along with other things. She'd been dropping hints about taking a break, maybe a trip to Tokyo to find herself. I'd thought it was midlife crisis nonsense. Turns out Tokyo was just code for Nathan's penthouse. I watched for exactly 37 seconds before closing the app. Not because I was devastated, though I was, but because I'm an architect. I know when a foundation is compromised, and this marriage had been showing stress fractures for months. The next morning, Olivia breezed into our kitchen wearing that post-workout glow that I now realized had nothing to do with her Pilates class. "Morning, honey," she chirped, pouring coffee from our ridiculously expensive espresso machine. "I've been thinking about that Tokyo trip again. Maybe next month?" "Tokyo," I repeated, watching her over my newspaper. "That's in Japan, right?" She laughed that tinkly laugh she used during client presentations. "Of course it's in Japan, David. I thought maybe 2 weeks. You know, to clear my head." "Clear your head," I nodded sagely. "And where exactly would you be staying in Tokyo?" "Oh, I haven't figured out all the details yet." She was already checking her phone, probably texting her travel companion. Maybe that boutique hotel Nathan mentioned. Nathan Caldwell. 47 years old, drives a BMW like it's an extension of his masculinity, and runs the marketing firm where Olivia works. He's the kind of man who uses words like synergy, unironically, and thinks his money makes him interesting. "Nathan's been to Tokyo?" I asked. She wasn't even pretending to pay attention now, thumbs flying across her screen. "He says it's life-changing." "I bet it is." After she left for work, or for Nathan's office, same difference. I sat in our perfectly appointed living room and took inventory. 12 years of marriage. No kids, thank God. A house I'd designed and built myself. A successful architecture firm. And a wife who was apparently getting more action than a Marvel movie. I could have confronted her immediately. Could have printed out screenshots, hired a divorce lawyer, started the whole messy process. But I'm an architect, an architect's plan. We measure twice, cut once. We think about load-bearing walls and structural integrity. Most importantly, we know that the most devastating collapses happen slowly, then all at once. My office manager Janice knocked on my door around 10. Janice is 50, built like a linebacker, and has been running my firm's administrative side since I opened the doors. She's also got the loyalty of a guard dog and the intuition of a tracker. "You look like hell," she announced, settling into the chair across from my desk with her ever-present coffee mug. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. I'm fine." "Bullshit. I've known you for 8 years, David. You've got that look." "What look?" "The same look you had when the city rejected the Riverside project. Like you're calculating how to rebuild something that's already fallen down." I stared at her for a long moment. Janice had never liked Olivia, though she'd been professional about it. Something about too much polish, not enough substance. "Hypothetically," I said, If someone was planning to leave their spouse, how would you handle it? Janice's eyes sharpened. Hypothetically, I'd make sure I had all my ducks in a row first. Documentation, financial records, evidence of any wrongdoing. She paused. Also, hypothetically, I'd probably want to make sure said spouse understood exactly what they were losing. Hypothetically. Of course. She stood up, smoothing down her skirt. You know, David, sometimes the best revenge isn't getting mad, it's getting better. That afternoon, I signed up for boxing lessons at Reggie's gym downtown. Reggie Thompson, ex-cop turned trainer, looked me up and down like I was a building inspection he was failing. You ever been hit in the face? He asked. Does emotional trauma count? He actually smiled at that. We'll start with the heavy bag. But first, tell me why you're really here. I told him. Not everything, but enough. Reggie listened without judgment, occasionally nodding like he'd heard variations of this story before. Here's the thing about fighting, he said when I finished. It's not about throwing the hardest punch, it's about outlasting your opponent, making them work harder than you do, wearing them down until they make mistakes. Sounds like architecture. Sounds like life. That evening, Olivia came home to find me rearranging our living room. I'd moved her grandmother's antique china cabinet to the garage and replaced it with a sleek, modern bookshelf. What are you doing? She demanded. Redecorating. You're always saying the place needs updating. But that cabinet has been in my family for generations. It's safe in the garage, climate-controlled. I continued arranging books, not looking at her. Besides, you'll be in Tokyo soon. Thought I'd surprise you. She stared at me like I'd grown a second head. David, are you feeling okay? Never better. Oh, I bought wine for dinner. That Bordeaux Nathan recommended last Christmas. Her face went pale. You remembered that? I remember everything, Olivia. Architect's brain. We're trained to notice details. Over the next 2 weeks, I made subtle changes. Donated 3 bags of Olivia's clothes to charity. Things she hadn't worn in years, but still. Switched our Netflix account to a new profile with my preferences. Started going to the gym every morning at 5. Olivia noticed, but didn't complain. If anything, she seemed relieved that I was finally taking care of myself. She was spending more time at work, more late nights, more weekend conferences. Her phone was always face down now, always on silent. I documented everything. Screenshots of her location data showing her at Nathan's building when she claimed to be at client meetings. Credit card receipts for lingerie I'd never seen. Hotel charges for a conference that didn't exist. But the real breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Claire Morrison, Olivia's best friend and biggest gossip. I was at the grocery store when I overheard her talking to another woman in the wine aisle. Olivia's finally going to do it, Claire was saying. She's leaving David next month. The Tokyo thing is just her way of easing into it. About time, the other woman replied. She's been complaining about him for years. Nathan's already looking at apartments for them. Something downtown, very modern. Olivia says David will never see it coming. He's so stuck in his routines. I stood there holding a bottle of wine, listening to my marriage being dissected like a failed building project. The worst part wasn't the betrayal, it was the casual dismissal. Like I was some predictable obstacle to be managed, rather than a person worth considering. That night, I logged into our home security system and scrolled back through 2 months of footage. The evidence was overwhelming and nauseating. They'd been using our bed, our kitchen, our living room. Nathan had even used my shower, probably my soap. But instead of rage, I felt something else. Clarity. The kind of cold, calculating clarity that comes when you finally understand the scope of a project. I opened my laptop and started planning. The boxing training was paying off faster than I'd expected. 3 weeks in, and Reggie had me sparring with other beginners. More importantly, I was sleeping better, eating better, and thinking clearer than I had in months. You're getting mean, Reggie observed after I'd landed a particularly solid combination on the heavy bag. That's good. Mean keeps you focused. I don't feel mean. I feel architectural. Same thing sometimes. Olivia barely noticed my physical transformation. She was too busy planning her escape to Tokyo with Nathan. I'd started leaving the smart home app open on my tablet, sound off, just to monitor their timeline. They were getting sloppy, confident. Nathan had even started parking his BMW in our driveway. The breakthrough came on a Thursday. Olivia announced she was working late again, but her location showed her at Nathan's apartment building. I decided it was time to do some reconnaissance. Nathan lived in one of those glass tower condos that screamed, "I have money and want everyone to know it." The kind of building I'd never design because it prioritized flash over function. I sat in my truck across the street, watching windows light up on the 32nd floor. That's when I saw her, a woman in her 40s, well-dressed, standing on the balcony with a glass of wine and a cigarette. She had the posture of someone carrying a heavy burden, and she kept looking up at the floor above, Nathan's floor. I made an educated guess and approached her when she came down to the parking garage an hour later. "Excuse me," I called out. "Are you Sophie Caldwell?" She turned, suspicious. "Who's asking?" "David Harper. I think we have something in common." Recognition dawned in her eyes. "You're Olivia's husband. For now, you're Nathan's wife. Also for now, apparently." She studied me with the intensity of someone who'd learned not to trust easily. "What do you want?" "To compare notes. Maybe grab a coffee." Sophie Caldwell turned out to be everything Olivia wasn't. Direct, honest, and furious in a way that burned cold rather than hot. We met at a diner downtown, neutral territory. "How long have you known?" she asked without preamble. "About a month. You?" 6 months. I hired a private investigator." She slid a manila folder across the table. "Nathan's been cheating for years, but Olivia's just the latest. He's also been skimming money from his business partners and lying about client billings." I opened the folder. Photos, financial documents, email printouts. It was a masterclass in documentation. "Why haven't you divorced him yet?" Sophie's smile was sharp enough to cut glass. "Because I want him destroyed, not just divorced. I want him to lose everything, the business, the money, the reputation, the girlfriend." She paused. "I assume you want the same thing for Olivia." "I want her to understand what she's throwing away." "Same thing, different words." Sophie signaled the waitress for more coffee. "I have a proposition." Her plan was elegant in its simplicity. Nathan's business partners were already suspicious about some irregularities in the books. Sophie had access to his home office and computer. I had access to Olivia's communications and schedule. Together, we could orchestrate a controlled demolition that would leave both of them buried in the rubble of their own making. "There's one condition," Sophie said. "No violence, no illegal activity, nothing that can't be explained as them facing the consequences of their own choices." "Agreed. I'm not interested in going to prison for them." "Good. Then let's talk about timing." The plan required patience and precision. Phase 1 involved gathering more evidence, while allowing Nathan and Olivia to get comfortable. Sophie would copy Nathan's files while I documented every lie Olivia told about her whereabouts. Phase 2 would be the revelation, but not a private confrontation. Something public, humiliating, and impossible to deny or spin. Phase 3 would be the aftermath. Divorce proceedings armed with overwhelming evidence, professional consequences for both of them, and social exile from their carefully curated circle of friends. "It's not enough to hurt them," Sophie explained. "We need to make sure they can't recover, can't rebuild somewhere else with someone else." I spent the weekend implementing Phase 1. I installed additional cameras in our house, legally, since it was my house too. I started forwarding Olivia's emails to a separate account. I documented every lie, every excuse, every time she claimed to be somewhere she wasn't. But the real intelligence coup came from an unexpected source: Our building superintendent, Mr. Kowalski. He was a retired electrician who'd never liked Olivia's entitled attitude toward building maintenance requests. "That BMW's been here every Tuesday and Thursday for 2 months, he told me, while I was checking our mailbox. Guy thinks he owns the place, parks in the visitor spots, leaves trash in the elevator." Trash? Champagne bottles, fancy takeout containers, like he's showing off. Mr. Kowalski shook his head. "Your wife says he's a business associate." "He is. They're very close." "Yeah, I figured. You want me to start towing him?" "Not yet, but maybe start documenting when he's here, for insurance purposes." Mr. Kowalski's eyes gleamed with the enthusiasm of a man who'd found a legitimate reason to cause trouble for someone he disliked. "I can do that. Timestamps, photos, the whole thing." By the end of the week, I had a comprehensive dossier on my wife's affair. Times, dates, locations, expenditures. Sophie had similar documentation on Nathan's business irregularities and other infidelities. "We're ready for phase 2, she announced during our second coffee meeting. "What did you have in mind?" "Nathan's company is having their quarterly client mixer next Friday. Big event. All their major accounts will be there. Olivia will be working it, of course." "Of course. I'm going to be there too. Nathan doesn't know I'm aware of the affair yet, so he won't be expecting me." Sophie's smile was predatory. "I thought you might like to attend as well, as my guest." The quarterly mixer was held at the Marriott downtown, in a ballroom that probably cost more to rent than most people made in a month. I arrived with Sophie, both of us dressed to kill. She'd introduced me to the other spouses as a friend, an architect who might be interested in redesigning the office space. Nathan held court near the bar, glad-handing clients and laughing too loudly at his own jokes. Olivia worked the room like the professional she was, charming potential accounts and managing logistics. They were careful not to interact too obviously, but I could see the subtle signals, the lingering looks, the way they positioned themselves to always be in each other's sightline. "They think they're so clever," Sophie murmured. "They're about to learn otherwise." Sophie had prepared a presentation for the evening, a slideshow about the company's recent successes and future plans. But the version loaded onto the conference room projector wasn't the one Nathan had approved. It started normally enough. Company statistics, client testimonials, revenue projections. Nathan stood at the front of the room, confident and relaxed, clicking through slides he'd seen a dozen times. Then slide 15 appeared, a photo of Nathan and Olivia in a restaurant, clearly intimate, clearly not discussing business. The timestamp showed it was taken during a supposed client meeting. Nathan's face went white, but before he could react, slide 16 appeared. Bank records showing personal expenses charged to company accounts. Slide 17. Emails between Nathan and other women, including several current clients. The room erupted in confused murmurs. Nathan frantically clicked the remote, but the slides kept advancing. Slide 18. A photo of his BMW in our driveway while Olivia was supposedly at a conference. Slide 19. Hotel receipts for rooms booked under fake names. Olivia had gone pale as paper. She was looking around the room like a trapped animal, probably calculating whether she could somehow salvage the situation. She couldn't. Slide 20 was the coup de grace, a compilation of text messages between Nathan and Olivia, discussing their affair, laughing about deceiving their spouses, and planning their Tokyo getaway. Nathan finally managed to shut off the projector, but it was too late. The room was buzzing with shocked whispers. Several clients were already heading for the exits. Olivia had disappeared entirely, probably hiding in the bathroom. "Ladies and gentlemen," Sophie announced, standing up from our table, "I'd like everyone to meet my husband, Nathan Caldwell, and his business partner in more ways than one, Olivia Harper." The aftermath was swift and brutal. Nathan's business partners demanded his immediate resignation. 3 major clients terminated their contracts that night. Olivia was fired before the weekend was over. But that was just the beginning. The fallout from the mixer was everything Sophie and I had hoped for, and more. By Monday morning, Nathan was locked out of his office and facing a forensic audit of his expense accounts. Olivia came home that evening, looking like she'd aged 5 years in 3 days. "We need to talk," she said, dropping her purse by the door with uncharacteristic carelessness. "About Tokyo?" I was sitting in my reading chair, working through blueprints for a new project. I didn't look up. "David, please, this is serious." "I'm sure it is. Did you know that Nathan's been skimming money from his clients? Sophie showed me the most interesting financial records." Olivia's face went through several expressions before settling on desperate. "You don't understand. It's not what it looks like. It looks like you've been having an affair with your boss while planning to leave me for a trip to Tokyo that was actually a trip to his bed." I finally looked up from my blueprints. "What am I misunderstanding?" She tried tears first, then anger, then bargaining. I watched it all with the detached interest of someone observing a structural failure in slow motion. "I made a mistake," she finally said. "Nathan convinced me that we weren't happy, that I deserved better. But I see now that I was wrong." "You deserve better than what, exactly?" "Better than this routine, this predictable life." I set down my pencil. "Olivia, I've spent 12 years building this predictable life. This house, this business, this marriage. I designed every detail to be exactly what you said you wanted. I know, but I'm not finished." I stood up, and for the first time in our marriage, she actually stepped back. The boxing training had changed more than just my physical appearance. "You decided our life wasn't good enough without ever talking to me about it. You decided to solve that problem by being with your boss in our bed while I worked late to pay for the lifestyle you enjoy. David, now you've lost your job, your lover is about to lose his business, and you want to come back to the predictable life you were so eager to escape." I walked toward her, and she backed up until she hit the wall. "Here's what I don't understand. What exactly do you think you're bringing to this negotiation?" She had no answer for that. The next few weeks were a masterclass in controlled demolition. Sophie and I coordinated our efforts like generals planning a campaign. She handled Nathan's professional destruction, while I managed Olivia's social exile. Claire Morrison, Olivia's gossip-loving best friend, proved to be an invaluable asset. I called her directly. "Claire, it's David. I think you should know that Olivia and I are getting divorced." "Oh my God, David, I'm so sorry. I had no idea you two were having problems." "Really?" "Because I heard you talking about it in the grocery store 2 weeks ago. Something about how Olivia was finally going to leave me because I was too predictable." The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. "I think there's been a misunderstanding." "No misunderstanding. But I wanted you to hear it from me first. Olivia's been having an affair with Nathan Caldwell. They were planning to move in together after she came back from her fake Tokyo trip." I paused for effect. "I thought you'd want to know before you heard it from someone else." Within 24 hours, everyone in Olivia's social circle knew the truth. The same women who'd been sympathizing with her about her boring husband were now discussing her affair with the relish of people who'd always suspected she thought she was better than them. Olivia tried to control the narrative, but Sophie and I had been thorough. Every lie was documented, every excuse contradicted by evidence. Her friends didn't just abandon her, they actively shunned her. Meanwhile, Nathan's situation was deteriorating rapidly. The forensic audit had uncovered years of financial irregularities. His business partners were preparing to sue him for breach of fiduciary duty. His wife had filed for divorce and was seeking half of everything, including assets he'd tried to hide. But the piece de resistance came from an unexpected source: Nathan himself. He showed up at my office on a Thursday afternoon, looking like he hadn't slept in days. Janice tried to stop him, but he pushed past her into my private office. "We need to talk," he announced. "Do we?" I didn't look up from my computer. I can't imagine what we'd have to discuss. "This has gone far enough. You've made your point. Have I? What point is that? Nathan closed the door and sat down uninvited. Look, I know you're angry about Olivia, but this isn't just about her anymore. You're destroying innocent people. Innocent people like who? My employees, my clients, people who depend on my business. I finally looked at him directly. Nathan, you destroyed your business when you started stealing from it. You destroyed your employees' jobs when you decided your personal expenses were more important than their paychecks. I just documented it. Sophie put you up to this. Sophie provided evidence. I provided motivation. I leaned back in my chair. But you're right about one thing. This isn't just about Olivia anymore. This is about the fact that you're a parasite who thinks other people exist for your convenience. Nathan's face flushed red. You smug son of a jerk. You think you're so much better than everyone else. I think I'm better than you. That's a pretty low bar. He stood up abruptly, knocking over his chair. You have no idea what you've done. Olivia never loved you. She told me everything. How boring you are, how predictable, how she had to fake it just to get through. I held up a hand. Nathan, stop. You're embarrassing yourself. She's only trying to come back because she has nowhere else to go. The second she finds someone better, she'll be gone again. Probably. But that's my problem, not yours. He stared at me for a long moment, breathing heavily. This isn't over. Yes, it is. You just don't know it yet. After he left, Janice poked her head into my office. Should I call security? No need. He's already defeated. He just hasn't accepted it yet. But Nathan wasn't quite finished. 2 days later, I came home to find my front door standing open and Olivia sitting on the couch, crying. What happened? I asked. Nathan happened. He came by this afternoon, drunk and angry. He said terrible things about you, about me, about Sophie. Then he started breaking things. I looked around. A lamp was overturned, and there were papers scattered across the floor. Did he hurt you? No, but he scared me. David, I think he's having some kind of breakdown. I called the police and reported the break-in. Then I called Sophie. He's lost it, I told her. Came to my office yesterday, making threats. Broke into my house today. I know. He cleaned out our joint accounts this morning and disappeared. His business partners think he's fled to avoid the lawsuit. Have you heard from him? One text message. This isn't over. Very original. But it was over, at least for Nathan. He'd overplayed his hand and destroyed whatever sympathy he might have had. The police issued a warrant for his arrest on charges of breaking and entering. His business partners froze his remaining assets. Sophie's divorce attorney had him declared in contempt of court for hiding marital property. Within a week, Nathan Caldwell had gone from successful businessman to fugitive, and everyone knew why. Nathan's disappearance should have been the end of it, but Olivia was still living in our house, still trying to salvage something from the wreckage of her choices. She'd been looking for work, but her reputation in the marketing world was toxic. The affair, the public humiliation at the mixer, Nathan's criminal behavior, it all reflected on her professionally. I can't find anything, she told me over breakfast. Every interview I get, they already know about Nathan, about the mixer. No one wants to hire someone involved in that kind of scandal. Maybe you should try a different industry. This is what I do, David. It's what I'm good at. You're also good at lying and manipulation. Have you considered politics? She didn't appreciate my humor. The divorce proceedings were surprisingly straightforward. Olivia's attorney had advised her to accept my terms rather than fight a battle she couldn't win. I documented everything, and Sophie had provided additional evidence of Nathan's criminal activities that implicated Olivia as well. She could face charges as an accessory if some of those expense account irregularities involved her, my attorney Ellen explained. Hotel rooms, restaurants, gifts. If she knew Nathan was using company money for personal expenses, she could be liable. Did she know? The evidence suggests she did. Several of the fraudulent charges were for activities she participated in. Olivia signed the divorce papers without reading them. She got her personal belongings, her car, and a small settlement. I kept the house, the business, and most of our assets. She didn't fight it. "Where will you go?" I asked her on the day she moved out. "My sister's for now, in Portland." She was packing the last of her clothes, moving mechanically. "David, I want you to know that I never meant for it to go this far." "What did you think would happen?" I thought you'd just accept it. Maybe be relieved even. We haven't been happy for a long time." "You haven't been happy. I was content with what we built." "Content isn't the same as happy." "No, but it's sustainable. Happy is a feeling. Content is a choice." I watched her fold a dress I'd bought her for our anniversary 2 years ago. "You chose to chase a feeling instead of appreciating what you had." She looked around our bedroom one last time. "Do you think you'll ever forgive me?" "I already have. Forgiveness is for me, not for you." "Will you ever trust anyone again?" "That's a different question." After she left, I walked through our house, my house now, and took inventory. It was the same building I'd designed and constructed, but it felt different. Lighter, somehow. Less cluttered with expectations and compromises. I was examining the structural changes I wanted to make when my phone rang. Sophie. "Have you seen the news?" she asked. "What news?" "Nathan's been arrested. In Mexico, of all places. Apparently he was trying to access an offshore account and got flagged by international banking authorities." I turned on the television. There was Nathan on the screen, being led away in handcuffs, looking like he'd been living rough for weeks. The reporter was discussing charges of embezzlement, fraud, and international money laundering. "How much money are we talking about?" I asked Sophie. "Over $2 million, spread across multiple accounts. The FBI thinks he's been stealing from clients for at least 3 years. Nathan's arrest made national news. The story had everything: adultery, corporate fraud, international manhunts. Olivia's name was mentioned in several articles as his alleged accomplice and romantic partner. Her sister called me a week later. "Olivia's been getting threatening messages," she said. "People found her address online. She's afraid to leave the house." "I'm sorry to hear that. Is there anything you can do? Any way to get her name out of the stories?" "No. She made her choices. These are the consequences." "David, please. She's falling apart. She's talking about hurting herself." I felt a flicker of something, not quite sympathy, but not satisfaction either. "Get her professional help. But don't ask me to fix this for her." 2 months later, Nathan was sentenced to 15 years in federal prison. The judge called his crimes a betrayal of trust that affected dozens of innocent victims. Olivia wasn't charged, but the civil lawsuits from Nathan's victims named her as a co-defendant in several cases. Sophie got everything in her divorce settlement: the house, the cars, the legitimate business assets, plus half of whatever the government recovered from Nathan's hidden accounts. "What are you going to do now?" I asked her during our final coffee meeting. "Travel. Maybe write a book about the experience." She smiled. "What about you?" "Back to work. I've got a new project, designing a community center for domestic violence survivors. Pro bono work." "That's very noble of you." "It's very practical. I learned a lot about psychological abuse during this whole experience. Figured I should put that knowledge to good use." Sophie raised her coffee cup in a mock toast. "To new beginnings. To better foundations." 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I was working late in my office when Janice knocked on my door. "There's someone here to see you," she said. "Says it's urgent." "Who is it?" "Olivia's sister. Karen, I think." I hadn't heard from Olivia since she'd moved to Portland. The civil lawsuits had been settled out of court. She'd paid what little she had and declared bankruptcy. Last I'd heard, she was working at a call center and living in a studio apartment. Karen looked like an older, more worn version of Olivia. Same bone structure, but harder around the edges. "Thank you for seeing me," she said, sitting down across from my desk. "What can I do for you?" It's about Olivia. She's not doing well. I'm sorry to hear that. Are you? Karen studied my face. Because from where I sit, it looks like you got everything you wanted. She lost her job, her friends, her reputation, her money. She's completely destroyed. She destroyed herself. I just documented it. You could have handled it differently, quietly, through lawyers. I could have, but then she would have learned that actions don't have consequences, that she could betray people and move on without really paying for it. Karen leaned forward. She's paid enough, don't you think? Has she? Because last I checked, she still doesn't understand what she did wrong. She thinks she's a victim of circumstances rather than the architect of her own downfall. She knows she made mistakes. Mistakes? I set down my pencil. Karen, your sister didn't make mistakes. She made calculated choices over a period of months. She chose to have an affair. She chose to lie about it. She chose to plan a life with another man while taking advantage of my financial support. Those weren't mistakes. They were decisions. Karen was quiet for a moment. What would it take for you to forgive her? I told her when she left. I already have forgiven her. But forgiveness doesn't mean pretending it didn't happen or helping her avoid consequences. She's talking about suicide, David. I felt that flicker again, not quite sympathy, but not indifference either. Then get her professional help. Check her into a facility. Do whatever you need to do. But don't come here expecting me to fix her mental health by pretending our marriage ended because of mistakes. After Karen left, I sat in my office thinking about consequences and proportionality. Had I gone too far? Had my revenge been too complete, too devastating? Then I remembered the smart home camera footage, the casual way they'd used our bed, our house, our life as the setting for their affair. The way Olivia had laughed about my predictability while planning to abandon our marriage. The way Nathan had sneered about her faking intimacy with me. No, they'd earned every bit of what happened to them. 3 weeks later, Janice brought me a newspaper clipping. Small item, buried on page 6 of the Portland Herald. Local woman dies in apparent suicide. Olivia had taken pills in her studio apartment. Her sister found her 2 days later. I stared at the clipping for a long time, waiting to feel something. Guilt, maybe. Regret. Some sense that I'd pushed too hard, gone too far. Instead, I felt empty. Not satisfied, not vindicated, just empty. I called Sophie that evening. I heard, she said before I could speak. Are you okay? I don't know. Should I feel responsible? For her choices? No. For the consequences of her choices? Also no. Sophie paused. David, she could have handled this differently at any point. She could have been honest about the affair. She could have accepted responsibility. She could have rebuilt her life without blaming everyone else for her problems. But she didn't. But she didn't. And that's not your fault. The funeral was small. Karen had asked me not to come, and I respected that. I sent flowers instead, with a card that said simply, I'm sorry for your loss. Because I was sorry, not for what I'd done, but for what Olivia had done to herself. Sorry that she'd been so focused on what she thought she deserved, that she'd destroyed what she actually had. Sorry that she'd never learned the difference between consequences and persecution. A month later, I got a call from an unexpected source, Nathan, calling collect from federal prison. I heard about Olivia, he said when I accepted the charges. Yes. I wanted you to know that I don't blame you for what happened to her. I didn't ask for your opinion. She was already broken when I met her, David. Broken in ways that had nothing to do with you or your marriage. I took advantage of that. Made it worse. Why are you calling me? Because I wanted you to know that you were right. About everything. I am a parasite. I did destroy innocent people. And Olivia... He paused. Olivia never loved either of us. She loved the idea of being someone different than who she was. Is that supposed to make me feel better? It's supposed to make you understand that you didn't kill her. She was already lifeless inside. Had been for years. I hung up without saying goodbye. That evening, I stood in my house, the house I'd designed for a marriage that no longer existed, and made a decision. I put it on the market the next week. The new place is smaller, simpler, a downtown loft with clean lines and no wasted space. No room for ghosts or regrets or what might have beens. I'm dating someone new now. Sarah, a structural engineer I met at a professional conference. She's direct, honest, and completely unimpressed by romantic gestures or grand declarations. When I told her about Olivia and Nathan and everything that happened, she listened without judgment and then asked practical questions about my financial situation and emotional availability. Are you looking for revenge against all women, or just closure from that specific situation? She asked over dinner. Closure, I think. Good. Because I'm not interested in being anyone's emotional rehabilitation project. I'm designing a new building, a mixed-use development that combines residential and commercial space with community services. It's the most complex project I've ever attempted, and the most rewarding. Sometimes I think about Olivia, about the choices that led to her passing. I wonder if there was something I could have done differently, some way to achieve justice without destruction. But then I remember that I didn't make her choices for her. I didn't force her to have an affair, or lie about it, or plan to abandon our marriage. I didn't make Nathan steal money or break into my house or flee to Mexico. All I did was make sure they faced the consequences of their own decisions. And if those consequences were more devastating than they expected, well, that's what happens when you build your life on a foundation of lies and selfishness. In architecture, we have a saying, measure twice, cut once. It means you should think carefully before you make irreversible changes, because once you cut a beam or tear down a wall, you can't undo it. Olivia and Nathan never learned that lesson. They made cuts without measuring, tore down walls without considering what they were supporting. I just documented the collapse. Did the